This is Irontrader, and this is Midday Trading. So first of all, we're going to take a look here at the indexes, the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. Then we'll look at Apple, and we'll look at Amazon. And then I had a really good question here that was posted, how to trade with volume. So I'm going to show you a couple charts there on how volume, how you can trade off of it, and what makes a difference, when it's high and when it's low. Okay, this video is for information purposes only, not a recommendation to buy selling stock market ETF. Please like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Alrighty, here we have the indexes, your Dow, your S&P, and your NASDAQ. Now, what they're looking for here today, we have green candles here on pretty much everything. Basically looking like a peace agreement, some kind of a situation we can end this war, or at least get that Straits of Hormuz open and have some talks going. Okay, so that's what is all hopeful. Now, again, if that can be done, I think these markets rally up very, very hard, very, very nicely. But then I think you're going to have to watch out because that could be a really good bull trap situation, which you have to be really pay attention to. Okay, so let's just pick these up here a little bit. Okay, so right now you can see here how strong that key 200-day simple moving average is. See how we popped right on up here, came right back down, popped right up here, came back down, went into it, come back down. Same way here, same way with Friday, but we do have that bottoming tail. But look here today, it stopped it right cold again. So basically what you're really watching here on the downside, we want to watch is got to hold this 46,497 here. If you lose that, we can come down to today's low at 46,354. But really, your key level we're watching here is going to be this 8-day at that 46.94 level. Okay, now you can see how the 8-day is curling up here. We're in that downtrend. Now we're trying to break that downtrend situation. But if we lose that key 8 SMA here, then we'll come right down to that bottoming tail, which you're looking at 45,897. We'll come down here, 45,848 level. And then we have that 45,057. That's going to be your big retest. Now, on the upside, you can see here this 200-day. That's going to be very, very key. We have to get above that 46,738. That's going to be very, very critical on a closing basis. We can't just pop and drop. That's great for trading, but that's not if you're a long-termer, okay? So we get above that 46,738 level, then we can march it right on top of here. We have 46,913. We can just take the candles all the way up here, 47,428. We come up here 47,711, but realistically what we're looking for is this 100 SMA up here at 48,103 and at 48,115 level. That's going to be your big targets, and that's going to be right here where we had a nice big rally. This is where it could stop very, very easily, and then we could come right back down and do a big correction. So we'd have to wait and see exactly. Now if you can blow through there, well, then we just bring these price channels right across here, and you're looking like 48,854. We bring that right across here, okay, at 49,815 and then 50,512. We don't know, what would happen, okay, once this war settled. Once you get up here, what is going to be the next thing that we're going to begin to, the U.S. is going to get yourself into, okay? So you just never know what kind of situation. So again, if we can get above and close above that 200-day, this is going to be your big target here. Is going to be that 100 SMA here in purple, and then we have the 50-day right there in green kind of a situation. Now, we had a nice, good positive divergence. See how we have a low and a lower low? We have a low and a higher low. That's why I always use RSI. It gives you that positive divergence, okay? That's the first flag that tells me, hey, this is reversing here. Then we have the green that crosses over red. That shows me another flag on a MACD that says, hey, we got momentum going here, and now look what we have. The key is got to get and close above that 200-day. Then we can aim at that 100 and that 50-day. Okay, now here we have the S&P, pretty much same situation. What we're looking for, it's got to be holding is this 6507. That's very, very key. Now you can see here how that 21-day is very, very strong. So we got to get above the 6607, and then right here is going to be right there at 6647. That's going to be your main targets that you have to get above. Yeah, then we have resistance, right? All these candles here, yes, we do. But this is going to be your big target. It's going to be that 50 SMA here, and it's going to be that 100 SMA at 6806. But we got to get above the 21-day, and we have to get above the key 200-day. Now, again, if we have to say just a rip your face off rally here, always watch these key levels here because you have to crack through there. If you don't, you could hit this, and you could either go sideways or you could come all the way back down and have yourself a really big correction kind of situation. So on a closing basis, it's got to hold this key 8-day. If not, you could retest that 63.16. Now, we don't have no divergence on here. This is just 46, which is, bottom line, this is not overbought or oversold. We have the green that crossed over red, shows that momentum. Okay, so actually this is rolling up here pretty nicely, but just watch these two key levels to make this thing if it's going to go higher. Now, here we have the NASDAQ, and this has kind of really been the lagger. Okay, so right here, you can see how the 21-day is not that far off of 200-day, not a little bit farther there, but look how far it is off of here. Okay, so right here, 21,984. You can see here today we popped through it, but we got it closed back above it. Okay, so that's going to be key. 21,984. You get above that, then we can aim for that 200 SMA here. Then we have your 50-day, and then we're going to have your 22,928. That is going to be your 100 SMA here. Okay, on the upside. Now, if we get that big rally going, we got to see, first of all, what it does if we can get above that 21-day, what it does when we hit that 200-day. Okay, does it stop right there, or does it smack right up the next level, the 50-day and then 100-day? So basically what you're trading is level to level to level. Always remember that. And if you miss a little bit, so what? You can always jump in. Two ways that I always trade is you buy at support, or you can also buy on strength. That's the key. So when we get above this 200-day and it keeps trying to move it, you can always add to your position to get to that 50-day. Keeps breaking that, you can add to the position, get to 100-day. Now, once it breaks that 100-day, well, then all we do is we just bring those price channels right across, and we can nail it all the way back up here again, the 23,988 level, okay? But on the downside, watch that 8-day. We want to hold that. If not, you could retest this 20,690 very easily. Now, no divergence here, but 47, that's plenty of room to run. The green is over your red, shows momentum there to the upside. So again, just got to be really patient with what we have going on here on these charts. Okay, let's take a look here now at Apple. Okay, now here we have Apple, and here we found to say at 245.51 level, okay? What we're watching here on the downside, we're watching the bottom of this candle at 244.68, and this is the key level here at 243.42. So you can see that we're holding that situation, which is always very, very good, okay? Now you can see we're rallied there. We're above that 200-day, the 8-day, and the 21-day. Now we're trying to get here, right here to this 50-day. But you can see where today we went to a high of 262.16. Right there, what is your retest? 262.48. See how nice these price channels work? That's all they are. Keep your charts simple. That's all you need to do, okay? So right here, these are the blue lines are just price channels, and all they are just tops and bottoms of candles, which makes life a lot easier, okay? So right now we went right into it, but you notice that we are below this key 50 SMA. So we have to get back above that 260. That's going to be key. And then you can have that 262.48. That's your next target. Then we can have that 100-day sitting at 265.39 level. Okay. Now, we also here, when you always want to look at the weekly chart here, what do we got here? 263, which is just right above that 262 mark and just right below, okay, right below that 100-day. So that's going to be very, very strong resistance here by Friday, a weekly chart. Okay, so always look at here on the old weekly chart. Now on the downside, you can see here we have that 256. That's your 8-day. You can see we're holding it very, very nicely here so far. That's the key, 256. Okay, so that would be your first key of support is this 256 level. Then we come down here to this 253. Then we have the 8-day at 253.19. Then we have your 200-day at 249, and then your retest at 245.51. See how simple this is? That's how you want to keep your charts, okay? So bottom line here, the blue, that's an 8-day. The yellow is a 21-day. Green is 50-day. 100-day is in the purple right there. And then we have your 200-day. And then all these are price channels, okay? And then what we have here is your RSI. It not only measures the strength, but also measures divergences and gives you a nice, good a look. And I'll give you an example of the divergences that I'm talking about. See how we have a high and we have a lower high, okay? But what do we have here? We have a high and we have a higher high, okay? Once this played out here, okay, what happened? Look how it fell all the way on down. So this here, when I look at this, I say, wow, this is on a weekly. So this is a big red flag. This is the first flag for me that I can see a negative divergence going on here. So got to be patient. And then it came right out. Then it came all the way down to the 200-day and then held it there on a nice closing basis. That's what we want to do. Just because it drops down, that's fine, but you want to hold it on a closing basis. Then it ripped up very, very nicely here. But always, that RSI is very valuable. Say it was the same way with the MACD, because what it does, it gives you this cross. See how this green crossed over your red, and it was all the way on a downslide. And look what happened. That's the result of it. Now what happens when the green crosses over, it shows momentum now to the upside. Okay, so these are very, very important. Now I've been doing this for 2.5 decades, and I've had every indicator imaginable that I've always found out that if you just keep it simple, that's a key. Keep your chart simple. Use a couple indicators, your RSI and your MACD. Now you can also use volume. I also look at that, but again, I don't trade on that. I trade on the RSI and the MACD. These are my red flag situations, and then the simple moving averages and the price channels make life a lot easier because that's all we're trading against. See, even though it popped up, people say, "Oh wow, look at traders." Okay, it's right above here, but you got to hold that 50-day. You can't just pop and drop that situation. Okay, so right now, watch that 50-day. Okay, that's going to be key. Watch right here. Watch that 21-day. And then we have the 100-day. Now we get above that, then all we do is bring your price channels right across. Okay, 276. That is going to be your next target. Come up here. What do we have? Okay, 280.90. Then we can have a big retest there of 288.62. Okay, so that's your upside, but you got to get through all this situation. On the downside, just watch that key 8 SMA. That's going to be very, very key. That's going to be 256. And then we can come down to 253 and then your 8-day. Now, what I like about this is this 8 days about ready to cross over that 21-day. So this can provide very, very nice support. And this could be a really good runner if it starts breaking up here through this key 50-day and that 100 SMA. Okay, let's take a look here now at Amazon. Okay, now here we have Amazon. Now, Amazon just announced Amazon, UPS, FedEx. They put on they're going to add a little surcharge now to your delivery. So it used to be free shipping was $35. I haven't checked it lately, but they're going to put a little surcharge on there to cover the expenses on the gasoline here. See, this is where it starts. This is why I always say, okay, right now here, we got to get this war finished, and you got to get this Straits of Hormuz open. You got to get it because it's going to take time because inflation builds in. Now, it's just not going to be, Amazon and FedEx and UPS. It's going to be the guy with the lawn service guy. Okay, and that's going to be the key, or any kind of a delivery service, or hey, I need an electrician at the house. Well, he's going to add a little bit more to his fee here. I need a plumber. I need a mechanical guy. That's where the inflation starts ringing in here with these high prices. Same way at the store. Okay, right now, prices are the same. But as it keeps on continuing, you say I'm buying some peppers for $2.29 at Aldi's. Well, now those peppers might be $2.49, $2.59, $2.69, and what it does, it starts creeping in, and it starts going into the eggs, into the milk, into the meats, and everything else. Then you start getting this inflation kind of a situation. So that's why I always talk about where when you have a scenario like this with the war, you got to get it solved. So T-Man, he's got to work on that kind of a situation like ASAP. Okay, so right here, what we have, this is your big resistance. You can see we still have a downtrending situation on Amazon, and this is consolidation, which is actually very, very good. Okay, you want that consolidation, and we have a double bottom, 196 and then 199. See a nice double bottom, and now she's rallying up here. And look at the green crossed over your red, kind of a situation. Now there's no divergences here. We just had an oversold condition, and now we're coming right on down here, working very nice. But here's your target: is got to get above this 214.56. That's going to be very, very key. Then we work yourself all the way up to here. You got 220.47. Okay. Then we're going to start running into strong resistance here with 220.63, and then we have 220.85 level. Always watch that 50-day and that 21-day on your weekly chart. Now, if you get above that, you can see how the 100-day crossed over your 200-day. That's going to be strong resistance, 223.55, and then we have your 224.54. Now, if we can get above all of this, then we can look at the top of this candle right here, okay? You have 226.31, and then we look to the bottom right there, because there's your gap and there's your fill at 231.82, okay? So your gap and your fill, but you got to get through it a 50-day. You got to get through this 50-day, 21-day, 100-day, 200-day in order to do that. Then we hit that gap, we hit that fill. Then we can start rising right on up here. We have 238 level. We'll come up here. You got 247, and we can retest all the way up there at 248.94 level. But right now we have sideways consolidation. But always watch these gaps and those fills. Those are going to be upside targets kind of a situation. On the downside here, well, this is what we're looking for right here, okay, is holding that 209 level, and then we have that 207 here on the daily. But always watch this 100-day, okay? So you're sitting there right at that 208. You gotta hold that kind of level, okay? So you got 209, and then we have your 100-day at 208. Then we have your 207. So you have a lot of good support here. Then we have right here at that 208 here on the weekly chart here. So always just take a look at that. Those are your key support. If we lose that, then here's going to be your target. It's going to be that 199. We lose that, obviously, your target is going to be 196 level, okay? So now we also have a gap right here. So if you lose that 196, look to the top of this gap right there at that 194.69. That's going to be your next target, which is basically just below that, and you can drop all the way down to 168 if everything gets hammered. But right now here, we just have sideways consolidation, and basically for me, this is just a trader's market until we can start cracking above all the resistant levels. Okay, let's take a look here at some volume situations. Okay, we have a very, very interesting that was posted here in the room about volume and how to trade with volume. Well, what you do is, I don't really trade like with volume, like per se, and say, hey, that's one of my main indicators, even though I do look at that whole situation. Okay, so here's one situation is where I would look at the volume. I used to just use the RSI and I use that MACD. But see, okay, now we take a look here at the volume, and you see this volume spike right here. And that was this big green candle, okay? That tells me that traders were just like basically all in on the situation, okay? But now, as this price is rising here on the crude oil, you notice how the volume is starting to drop off. That tells me that this is not going to last anytime soon, okay? And if we get any kind of a peace agreement here, this is going to fall off, like this volume is going to fall off, and this is going to go way down here real quick. Now, when we look at like on a okay, now here's a monthly chart, okay? So what we want to look at is right here, okay? So we look at the top of this candle. Now look at the volume on here. You just absolutely maxed it right on out. So when you see that, what you do is you always line up a couple indicators, okay? So what you do is you take the RSI and you see, wow, this is maxed right here. Look at the volume that came in on this topping tail, and that we have the way to have topping. Now look at here how that it came right on down, and then now you're trying to trade this whole kind of a situation. So when you look at this, we always look for these volume spikes. Now that can work both ways, okay? So like on a big sell-off kind of situation, you can also have, you can see here where we had right here, okay, we had another big volume situation. And then it just started, that's where everybody was piling in, and then you can see how it was dropping off, and same way the volume was dropping off. And then another big spike, and then you can see where the volume is coming on in kind of a situation. Okay, so that there you got to be very, very cautious of is when you look at the volume. So I always look at it here is when you see the volume spiking, you'll see the price either spiking on up here or spiking right on down here. So when you see it spiking up, like on this situation, that's when you want to basically get out of your trade because everybody's in, and that's where they sucker you in. There's so much volume, and then this is what happens, okay? So you went all the way to 119.48. If you would have held it, look at that. It closed at 85.08. All the way down here, okay? So always watch this here, but when you see them spikes going on up here in volume, that's exactly what you say, hey, I want to get out or I want to get all the way on in here. Okay, now here's the opposite. Okay, so you can see here where we had this spike all the way down, and you notice how the volume popped right up again, okay? Then we just had the sideways action. Then we went back to normalcy here again until we had that big pop up again, and then there's the volume creeps up again. Okay, and then we had to look at this big spike up. Now, this is a 5-minute chart, and what do we have? That big volume again, okay? So this is what you always pay attention to. When you see that big pop up here, always look at that volume. You say, hey, all of a sudden now volume is coming in here. Why is that the situation? And then this is the situation where it suckered all these people in, all the traders in, and then traders were buying it like I do on the bottoms here. I'm not looking to buy it on the top. Okay, so I hope that kind of answers your question. So anytime you see these peaks that are going on, that's when basically what you want to do is either you want to get out or you want to get in. And most of the time is when you see heavy volume is when you want to get the hell out of the trade. Alrighty, that's what I got for you. I'll be back here after the old pit close, and we will take a look here at obviously crude oil and natural gas, gold, silver. We'll take a look here at Bitcoin, and then we'll take a look at the indexes. Right now, the Dow's up 70. S&P's up 13 and NASDAQ up 74. But remember, this is all war-based, peace talks-based, some kind of a ceasefire kind of a situation. If this doesn't work out, this market could fall just as fast as it goes up. All right, trade what's in front of you, not what you want.